In this episode, we shift from understanding what the exam expects to building a study rhythm that you can actually live with day after day without burning out or drifting away from the material. The biggest challenge for most learners is not intelligence or motivation, because it is consistency under real-life pressure where meetings run long, energy dips, and your brain is already tired from problem-solving all day. A realistic rhythm is not the same thing as an ambitious schedule, because realistic means it still works on the weeks when everything goes wrong. Since this course is audio first, you can build a spoken approach that turns ordinary moments into progress, like commute time, a walk, chores, or short breaks, instead of relying on perfect quiet study blocks that rarely happen. The goal is to make your study feel like a steady drumbeat you can maintain, where small sessions add up and your confidence grows because you keep showing up. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyber.author.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. A strong rhythm starts with understanding how learning sticks, because a lot of learners accidentally build routines that feel productive but do not produce reliable recall on exam day. The brain remembers better when you practice retrieving information, not just hearing it or rereading it, and it remembers best when those retrieval attempts are spaced over time. That means a rhythm should include repeated contact with the same ideas across days and weeks, instead of long marathons followed by long gaps. Audio is perfect for repeated contact because you can replay concepts while doing something else, but you still need moments where you actively test yourself. A simple habit like pausing after a paragraph and summarizing the key idea out loud forces retrieval and reveals what you truly understand. When you build your rhythm around spacing and retrieval, you stop relying on the illusion of familiarity and start building the kind of memory that survives stress. Next, you need to define what a study unit is, because vague plans like study for an hour tend to fail when the day gets messy. For spoken learning, a study unit can be a short listening segment paired with one active step, such as restating the concept, inventing a simple example, or explaining why it matters in architecture terms. If your unit is small, like 10 to 15 minutes, it is easier to protect and easier to repeat, and you can stack units when you have extra time. The active step is what turns listening into learning, because without it the session becomes passive and you may feel calm but retain little. Think of each unit as a rep in a workout, where the repetition matters more than the single session's intensity. This also makes your schedule resilient, because even a chaotic day can still hold one rep. A rhythm that fits a working architect also has to respect energy patterns, because attention and reasoning are not equally available at all hours. Many people have a brief window of high focus, often in the morning or early afternoon, and then a longer period where they can still absorb ideas but struggle with deep analysis. You can use that by placing your hardest mental work, like practice questions and error review, into the high-focus window. During lower-energy windows, you can listen, review, and reinforce concepts, which still helps because repetition and familiarity are valuable when paired with later retrieval. This approach prevents the common frustration of trying to do the hardest tasks when you are mentally drained and then concluding you are not improving. Instead, you align task type to energy type, and your progress starts to feel smoother and less stressful. You also need to balance breadth and depth, because architecture exams reward both wide coverage and the ability to reason carefully in a scenario. A rhythm that only chases coverage can create a shallow understanding that collapses under complex questions, while a rhythm that only goes deep can leave large sections of the blueprint underexposed. A practical solution is to run two tracks at the same time, one that steadily touches every domain over time and another that dives deeper into one area each week. The steady track prevents neglect, and the deep track builds confidence and competence in meaningful chunks. With audio, the steady track can be short daily listening, while the deep track can be a few focus sessions where you work through harder concepts and test yourself. The rhythm becomes sustainable because you are not constantly choosing between coverage and mastery, since both are built into the week. A key part of a realistic rhythm is building in review on purpose, because most learners review only when they feel anxious, and that makes review feel like punishment. Instead, review should be scheduled as a normal part of the cycle, like brushing your teeth, so it stops being emotional and becomes automatic. A simple method is to revisit yesterday's ideas briefly today, last week's ideas briefly this week, and last month's ideas briefly this month. The point is not to repeat everything, but to refresh the pathways so the knowledge stays available. Audio makes this easy because you can replay earlier segments, but you should still add a retrieval step, like naming the core concept before you press play. Over time, you will notice that your recall becomes faster and your confusion decreases, which is a strong motivator to keep the rhythm going. You should also plan for the reality of interruptions, because a rhythm that collapses after one missed day is not a rhythm, it is a fragile plan. A resilient schedule includes catch-up paths that do not require you to repay all missed time, since that kind of debt usually leads to quitting. One approach is to keep a default minimum, such as one short listening unit on any day no matter what, and treat anything beyond that as bonus. Another approach is to have a weekly reset session where you lightly review and then continue forward without guilt. The deeper lesson is that consistency is built from returning quickly after disruptions, not from never being disrupted. When you practice returning, you train the habit of reentry, and that habit matters more than any perfect calendar. Since the exam includes scenario-based questions, your rhythm should include practice that feels like scenario thinking, not just concept review. You can do this without tools or heavy setup by using short spoken scenarios you create for yourself based on what you learned. For example, after learning a concept about governance or risk, you can imagine a simple organization with one constraint, like tight budget or legacy systems, and then ask what an architect should prioritize. The act of forming the scenario and choosing a direction strengthens your ability to apply knowledge, which is what the exam often tests. You can also practice explaining why one choice is better than another, because justification is a major part of architectural thinking. This kind of spoken rehearsal can be done while walking or driving, which is why it fits a busy schedule so well. Another helpful ingredient is an error log that is designed for spoken review, because mistakes are where the fastest learning happens if you capture them correctly. Many learners just note that they got something wrong, but they do not record why, so the same mistake returns. A simple spoken-friendly error log can be a short note that includes what the question was really asking, what you chose, why that choice was tempting, and what rule or concept would have led you to the better answer. The goal is to convert each miss into a small lesson you can replay in your head later. If you revisit a few error notes each week, you will start to see patterns, like misreading constraints or confusing architecture decisions with implementation tasks. Fixing patterns is more efficient than fixing individual facts, and it is a hallmark of mature studying. Because you are building a rhythm, you also need an approach to motivation that does not depend on feeling inspired. Motivation is unreliable, but identity and routine are reliable. So the goal is to make study part of who you are during this season, not something you negotiate with yourself every day. A small, consistent routine reduces decision fatigue, which is the hidden enemy of busy learners. If your plan requires you to constantly decide what to study next, you will spend energy on planning instead of learning, and you may avoid studying because planning feels heavy. A simple rotation, like cycling through domains in a predictable order, reduces that friction. You are not locking yourself into rigidity. You are removing daily choice, so progress is easier. It is also important to set realistic milestones, because a rhythm needs feedback to stay alive, and vague milestones like "be ready soon" do not provide feedback. Milestones should be measurable in a way that matches the exam, such as the ability to explain a domain's main ideas clearly without notes or to answer a set of mixed practice questions with consistent reasoning. The milestone is not just a score, because scores can bounce around early on, but a sign that your thinking is becoming more structured. When you hit a milestone, you do not stop. You simply adjust the rhythm upward slightly, like adding one more practice session per week. This creates a sense of growth without demanding a sudden overhaul of your life. Over time, small adjustments compound, which is exactly how sustained preparation works. A spoken rhythm also benefits from deliberate language practice, because the ability to explain a concept clearly is closely tied to understanding it. If you can explain a topic in plain words, you usually have the structure in your mind, and if you cannot, the gaps will show quickly. You can practice by teaching an imaginary learner in your own voice, using simple terms and linking ideas together. When you stumble, that is not failure. It is a map of what to revisit. This is especially helpful for architecture topics that involve trade-offs, because explaining trade-offs forces you to name constraints, priorities, and consequences. Over time, your spoken explanations become smoother, and that smoothness often translates into faster comprehension of exam scenarios. As you refine the rhythm, you should include a weekly reflection that is short and practical, not emotional or judgmental. Ask what parts of the routine you actually did, what parts you avoided, and what the avoidance signals, such as tasks being too long, too hard, or scheduled at the wrong time. Then make one small change for the next week, like shortening a session, moving practice questions to a higher energy day, or adding a review pass. This keeps the rhythm adaptive, which matters because life changes week to week. The purpose of the reflection is not to criticize yourself, but to tune the system so it serves you better. A tuned system carries you forward even when your mood is not ideal. To close, remember that a realistic study rhythm is a design problem, and like any good design, it must meet requirements, handle constraints, and remain stable under stress. You want a rhythm built on small spoken units, spaced repetition, and frequent retrieval, with harder tasks placed where your energy supports them. You want resilience through minimum commitments and easy reentry after disruptions, so the routine does not collapse when life happens. You want regular scenario thinking and error review, so your reasoning improves, not just your vocabulary. When those pieces come together, studying stops feeling like a fragile project and starts feeling like a reliable habit that carries you to exam day with steady confidence.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit BareMetalCyber.com.